Hello everybody and welcome, and today we are talking Jeep. More specifically, we'll be talking about my Jeep. So if you've ever watched anything on our channel before, you know that my Grand Cherokee is at the forefront of all of our modifications and upgrades, and this thing has taken us on off-road adventures all across Arizona. So because of that, I get asked all the time about different things on my Jeep. Would I recommend the lift? What kind of paint is on the side panels? What tires am I running? So today we are doing an official walk around video where we can hopefully answer some of those questions, and I am going to try my best to talk about and show all of the changes and upgrades since the very beginning. I've really wanted to do one of these walk arounds before, but with the seemingly constant upgrading, I always put it off until the next upgrade was done. Well, that day is finally here today, so if you have any questions about my Jeep or just want to know a little bit more about the Grand Cherokee, this video is for you. Let's get started. Alright, so before we get into the upgrades, let's first talk about some of the basics. This is a 1994 Jeep Grand Cherokee with the Laredo trim level. This Jeep came with a 5.2 liter Chrysler 318 small block V8, which cranks out about 230 horses and around 280 foot-pounds of torque from the factory. When I first got this Jeep back in 2014, it had 133,000 miles and was completely stock. Not a single upgrade was done to it, and it had lived most of its life right here in Arizona. Now, at the filming of this video here in November of 2018, this thing has about 157,000 miles on it. And that means that I've put on nearly 25,000 in the 4 years I've owned it. Now, the engine is still completely untouched on this thing, but the transmission was overhauled shortly after I got the Jeep back in 2014. Otherwise, this thing is still running strong. So some of the exterior and most obvious upgrades are undoubtedly the lift, wheels, and tires. For the lift kit, I went with a 3.5-inch suspension lift from Trailmaster. The kit included 4 new coil springs, shocks, and new lower control arms. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the choice of this lift. Of course, when I look at the Jeep now, it always would have been nice if I went with a bigger lift and things to be a little bit higher, but hindsight's 2020. As far as comfort goes, the lift is relatively smooth. I will talk about drivability and comfort at the end of the video. The 3.5 inches of lift would allow me to fit the 31-inch Cooper AT3s I have with only minor trimming needed. The AT3s from Cooper are reasonably priced and provide a good balance between everyday drivability and quietness on pavement, as well as plenty of good traction when off-road. My tires are mounted to 15-inch Black Rock steel wheels. The specific model of the wheel I have is a Dune 941 series. It is actually no longer made anymore, so I was lucky to find a matching wheel online to make the matching set for the spare. Now, speaking of other really noticeable upgrades are the bumpers. Up front, I have the Hanson Winchguard bumper. I've been really happy with how this went on and how it looks. The bumper is kind of a middle-of-the-road option from Hanson. It was nice adding some recovery points up front and having a spot for a winch to mount in the future. I actually already have a winch to mount on the front, but I'm waiting to get some other projects done before I tackle that. In the meantime, I have my two 55-watt driving lights from ProComp temporarily mounted in the winch plate holes. In the back of my Jeep is the rear bumper and tire carrier combo from Rockhard 4x4. Again, I was really happy with how easily this thing went on. It took about 6 hours, but overall very simple process. And the bumper itself not only looks incredible, but is also very functional and useful. I was able to move my spare and high lift jack off of the roof and have them now in a more accessible location in the rear. The bumper also includes recovery points and a tow hitch. And while I don't have it mounted right now, the bumper also has the option of mounting on a fuel can whenever I think I may need some extra gas. That's one of the things that I really like about this bumper. It's very modular. I can put on and take off things as I need, whether I'm going on a trip or just daily driving this thing. Some other exterior upgrades include the functioning hood louvers on the front. These are GenRight hood louvers, and they actually help out quite a lot. Quite a few people I've talked to in the past thought they were fake, but they are very much real and very much help to keep the engine cooler when it's really hot. With the combination of the V8 under the hood and all the hot air here in Arizona, having an outlet for hot air has made a noticeable difference. The side panels have also been painted with Rustoleum truck bedliner. That is the bedliner that comes in a spray can. I also did have the front and rear bumper cover sprayed, but now that I've added the bumpers, those are no longer a factor. The bedliner went on real easy with no prep work needed other than a good clean, and it has held up to the elements surprisingly well. The bedliner has been on my Jeep for just about 2 years now without any issues. I've also replaced the factory fuel door with a more aggressive fuel bezel from a Jeep TJ. This has literally no purpose other than for pure aesthetic appeal. It's actually a little bit more of a hassle having this on it because now I have to unlock the gas cap with a key and find a flat place to set the cap while I fill up. The gas bezel really does have no actual useful value other than for looks, and I do kind of like it. Now, a couple of people are very upset that I did not put the screws on the outer part of the bezel, just because, I thought that it was being held on by the inner bolts, so there was no reason to put them on the outside. And as of right now, I'm probably just going to leave them empty. Moving to the top of the Jeep is the custom roof rack we made. This was originally designed to carry a tire, jack, lights, and some other gear, but since we have the new rear bumper now, it is undergoing a little bit of an overhaul. In fact, the next ZJ project video on our channel will be an upgrade to the roof rack, so if it looks a little bit different now, don't worry, all of that will be addressed soon. The rack itself is a very simple build designed to be low profile but secure. My dad and I built the outer shell using steel bars, and then we attached it to the roof rails using some custom made brackets. The roof has a natural curve in it, but with the rack up there, it actually sits perfectly flat. The rack bolts in using the existing roof rail bolt holes, which is really convenient and surprisingly secure given the right hardware. Up in the front is two 55-watt spotlights, affectionately known as the Mickey Mouse ears, and those are also from ProComp. I also have a 24-inch flood light bar up there as well. All of that is mounted to one of the crossbars actually that came on my Jeep when I first got it. Without the tire and the jack up on the roof, this lighting setup will likely change here in the near future to something a little more simple and low profile. So be on the lookout for that as well in the coming months. Underneath the Jeep has also seen quite a few changes. Without a doubt, the biggest upgrade was probably replacing my old 249 transfer case with the newer and upgraded 242 transfer case. My factory T-case had a bad viscous coupler and was clicking on tight turns when I got it, so getting a new one was a very easy decision. The 242 case I picked up included two-wheel drive and all-wheel drive, which was two additional options that my old case did not have. I got the case from LKQ, but you could probably find one on eBay, Craigslist, or even Facebook if you look. The install was pretty complicated, but having the 242 transfer case and additional drive modes has been really useful. The actual gas mileage savings is debatable with the new case. Either way, I still average around 15 miles per gallon, which isn't bad considering. Protecting my transfer case is the transfer case skid plate from Skid Row. This was the first skid plate I added, and I think it is absolutely necessary for anyone wanting to do any off-roading. On this model of Jeep, the transfer case naturally hangs down below the transmission and provides the perfect snag point for a large rock. This skid takes away that worry from getting hung up or destroying the underside of my Jeep on an obstacle. The rear driveline has also been slightly lengthened in order to accommodate the extra clearance needed as a result of the lift. The front drive shaft, though, is still the original length. The cat has been replaced and a high-flow muffler has also been added since I got the Jeep. Finally, in the back is my Iron Rock off-road gas tank skid. This skid plate is also incredibly important as it protects the gas tank in its naturally precarious positioning underneath the Jeep. As far as differentials go, my diffs are still stock, so I'm rocking the Dana 30 up front and the Dana 35 in the back. As far as changes to that is concerned, I'm not really sure what direction I want to go, but some lockers and maybe some upgrades will happen sometime in the future. Underneath the hood may look fairly stock, but it has also seen its fair share of changes and replacement parts. The computer has been replaced, as have a number of the other sensors, including the IAC valve, throttle position sensor, and crank position sensor. All of this was replaced in order to solve a random stall scenario that our ZJ had back when we first got it. Luckily, that issue has been resolved for a couple of years now, but not without some serious work at the beginning. We've also replaced the water pump, fan clutch, and alternator with factory parts. We use an Optima yellow top as our primary battery, and have also put in a Can-N high flow filter. In regards to fuel, we have replaced the fuel injectors with a high flow injector, as well as replaced the fuel rail which we broke during that installation. We've also installed a fuse block as a precaution for all of the wiring and accessories we've added to the Jeep. Other than all of that, it's fairly stock under here. Moving inside of the Jeep now are some more things to talk about. Aside from the headliner, the inside is actually in pretty good shape. Under the overdrive buttons on the right side of the steering wheel are some of the switches for my lights. We wanted to put some rocker switches within easy reach of the driver, so we ended up on this spot. The one on the left turns on my driving lights that are mounted to the front bumper. The one in the middle turns on my spotlights on the roof, and the one on the right turns on my light bar. Now this arrangement will probably change, like I said earlier, as I shuffle around the lighting configuration and add a winch in the future. To the right I have my aftermarket stereo, which is nothing fancy. Below that are my transfer case shifter and the gear shifter. And to the right of all of that is my CB radio. So we put the radio here because it is still within reach of the driver, but it is out of the way, but not in the way of whoever is sitting in the passenger seat. Right now the CB actually doesn't even work. I did have the antenna mounted on the roof, but again, that configuration is in the midst of a change, so until we relocate the antenna, which will probably be on the rear bumper, this thing is temporarily out of commission. Having the CB is nice to chat with other people on group runs, and just to have as an emergency backup in case something goes wrong. On the overhead console is the final upgrade that I've made up here. In place of one of the small compartments, I think that was used to hold sunglasses, we have added a small wooden platform and additional rocker switches. This is nothing more than a piece of particle board that's been painted and then drilled up into the roof. We added 3 switches up here so that in the future they could be used for additional accessories. 2 of the switches don't actually work right now, and the middle one is used for the rear lights. Again, the rear lights used to be mounted on the roof rack, which is another part that is being relocated. So until those find a new home, this switch actually doesn't turn anything on either. But don't worry, changes are coming soon and it will look a lot better. In the middle row, under the back seats, I have some recovery gear I think I may need. Stuff like jumper cables, a secondary jack, and wood blocks live under my rear seats. I also used this space to house an amp for my speaker system. In the very back, things are fairly normal aside from the speaker box. This speaker box was custom built by my dad and perfectly tucks into the wheel well out of the way. The box holds 3 8-inch speakers, and this thing is bolted down firmly so I don't have to worry about it budging at all. I also carry a crate full of emergency supplies, which includes my air compressor, extra fluids, a tire patch kit, and a few other things. Finally, the interior lighting of the Jeep has been upgraded with LEDs, so I no longer have those ugly halogen lights anywhere on the inside. The LED light upgrade was a fairly simple and cheap process that has been pretty useful so far. That just about wraps up this video, although I do want to cover a couple of quick topics I get asked about in regards to my Jeep. The first is the dreaded death wobble. I have briefly experienced death wobble on my Jeep about 3 years ago. It started off with a couple of minor shakes up and around highway speed at 50 miles per hour after I would hit a pretty good bump. I did have one case of really bad wobble that actually made me stop the Jeep, jack up everything, and make sure that the wheels were not coming off. The solution we used was a new steering stabilizer, since our old one was completely shot, which I know isn't a true or permanent fix, but it was enough to cover up the wobble that we were experiencing. Since then, we have looked at the front end geometry and aligned the Jeep several times, and so far the problem has not returned. Lastly, I want to talk about drivability and comfort. So a lot of times people would ask me if I would recommend the lift I have or the tires I'm running, and I typically lean towards yes, but I really can't comment on it entirely. And the reason why is that my Jeep rides pretty rough. It's noisy on the inside, and there are lots of vibrations and rattles when I go over bumps, and it's really hard to pin that on any specific reason other than the fact that this thing is nearly 25 years old and doesn't perform like a new car would. That being said, I do feel confident in the lift I chose and the tires I have, but I really can't comment on the overall comfort and quietness of the ride since there are so many other factors on this old Jeep. At this point, I've pretty much come to terms with how the Jeep rides, and to me, it is nothing out of the ordinary to hear a vibration or to hear a panel rattling. It's just part of owning this Jeep. Well, that just about covers everything I can think of on my Jeep. A lot of the stuff I talked about today was featured in its own Grand Cherokee project video, so if you want to know a little more detail about something, chances are there is a longer video on that. Anyways, that covers the walk around video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm not going to be doing another one of these for a little while, just because I want to get some more upgrades under my belt before I do another one. The point of this video was just to get you caught up to speed on the build so far. Be sure to check out the description below. I will be putting timestamps and some product links as much as I can about specific things I talked about today. That way, if you are interested in anything, you can go check it out firsthand. If somehow in all of my rambling today I didn't answer your question, feel free to leave a comment below and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Anyway, I'm really happy with the ZJ project so far. This thing has come such a long way from when I first got it back in 2014. But the project is not done. In fact, this is probably going to be going on for quite some time. There's a lot more things I want to do to it and make it even more capable out on the trails. In the next couple of months, we do have some more project videos coming out regarding this thing. So if you are not already, be sure to subscribe to this channel. That will keep you up to date with all of the latest projects and adventures that we go on. As always, I do appreciate you watching this video, and we will see you on the next one.